Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well today. In this video, I'm going to be going over a tutorial on how to create a data table as well as a graph for linear equations. Now just to get you acquainted first, we have these columns here. We have A, B, C, D, E, and F, so on and so forth, and we have rows here. So our columns are letters, but our rows are represented by numbers. If we click on maybe this cell right over here, each of these boxes, we'll call them cells, you'll see that over in the top left corner it does say B6, so this is cell B6. If I click over here, that's going to be F, column F, and row 4. You can see that in the top left corner. If I click over here, this is B13. It's right down over here as well. I'm going to start off by writing our linear situation. We're going to start off with a few different things. So I'll just write that and put some arrows. This is not necessary for you to do, but I'm just going to try to label everything to make it super clear. Once we have a situation, I'll talk about what the independent variable is. Spell that correct. Then I'll also label the dependent variable right over here. And then I'll put our linear equation afterwards, right over here. Now you can see here that the text I put in column A actually kind of flows into column B. So what you can do is if you want, you can just click on this, and there's a lot of nice tools you can use, but I'm gonna click on merge cells. And what happens here is that just combines these columns of A and B for just this particular row. And just for simplicity's sake here, if you want to merge each of these as well, you're totally welcome to. This just creates the same type of formatting. And now these are just kind of one big box for each one. And I'm going to line these up on the right side. So I'm going to put the information so you can see where it's pointing to directly. So I'm going to make up a linear situation here. So I'm going to say something like, I gave my dog Benny 17 treats already. And then I continue to give him maybe 9 more treats per day. All right, he's a good boy, so he's gonna get lots of treats. This right here represents a linear situation just because I'm giving him the same amount of treats every day, so it's a constant rate of change. Now, if you think about it, we should have two variables, an independent and a dependent variable. And in this case, our independent variable is going to be time, and it's gonna be measured in the number of days. Okay, so I'm just gonna put that right here. And what depends on that? Well, it's going to be the treats, okay? So it's going to be the total number of treats that Benny gets. Really depends on how many days go by. If more days go by, then Benny's going to be getting more treats. And if less days go by, he's not going to be able to get as many treats. For a linear equation, remember that we typically write y is equal to independent variable. That's usually going to be x here, so I'm just going to label that's x if you don't remember. And dependent variable, we can say that's going to be y. So that's kind of our default variable. So I'm going to start with that just for making this very straightforward. And we can say y is equal to, well, the rate here, we start with the rate, which is 9 treats per day. X is the number of days, so 9 per day, that's our rate, plus the constant of 17 treats that Benny already got. So that's not going to change. While this 9x does change in value, this variable term, it changes in value just because as more time goes by, as x increases, we'll get more treats. And the 17, or plus 17 rather, is our constant term. Benny already got those 17 treats, so that's just not going to change. Now, if you want to be even more specific here, which we typically want to in different situations, we can come up with more specific variables here. So for our independent variable here, instead of x, maybe we can use a variable like d for the number of days, and maybe for y, for the total number of treats, we can use the letter t to represent the total number of treats. That's a little bit more specific to this situation. So let's see what we would write instead. Instead of y, we would write t, so the total number of treats is equal to, well, it's 9 per day, and the days are actually, we're going to use the letter d, so it's 9d, or 9 times d, and plus the constant of 17 afterwards. So this would be our linear equation, but using more specific variables to this particular situation. Now, if you don't like that these words are spilling over to these other columns, remember you can always merge these so it doesn't really get affected. This one's pretty short, so it's not really going into that one at all. Some people, have a little bit more OCD than others, or maybe not OCD, but just preferences. If you want to line everything up, you totally can. Maybe I'm one of those people, but it's just to recap here, we have the first thing, which is our linear situation. And then we talked about the independent variables here, independent variable rather, and that's the time measured in days. Our dependent variable we found out was the number of treats that depended on how much time went by. Here's our general linear equation, and we're using x's and y's here. but we changed it to be more specific to this particular case and used T and D to represent the treats and the days. Now, something else you can do is, you can hit Command B or Control B, or you can bold things if you think it looks a little nicer. You can change fonts. These are all things that you can do in Google Docs and other, other softwares as well. And I'm just making it maybe a little bit easier for you guys to read. And let's see here. I think this might have spilled over a little bit more, so I could just merge that. There we go. I was missing the day here. But I guess that's going to bother me now here, so let me just merge these as well. And try to do things in a simple way to not show you too many shortcuts and just kind of show you how to do things generally. Something that might or might not be helpful to you guys as well is you can always highlight columns, and if you want to like reformat them and make them wider, you can also do that too. While you can do individual ones, that's perfectly fine. You can make a column wider or skinnier, but again, that's going to make some of them wider or skinnier than others. So what you can do as like a, formatting thing is you can highlight all of them if you just click on the letter and drag it down. So if you click and drag, however many columns, if you want to format a specific thickness, you can actually make them all very skinny, or you can make them all very wide. But just something for you guys to play around with as well, in case that's useful in any way. So I'm just gonna, a little smaller. All right, that's fine. Now let's go ahead and start making a data table here. So I'm just going to skip a row and kind of get started in that. We typically are going to write our independent variable first. So independent variable, I'm going to put right over here on our left column, and I'm going to write dependent variable over here in our column B. And you can notice that the words actually kind of spill over and you can't see the rest of the words. What you can do to kind of fix that is you can click and highlight which ones are having that issue. And you can click on this text wrapping tool, and you can click wrap. And what that does is it kind of just brings it to the next row, or it makes the cell a little bigger. Sorry, it doesn't make the row, doesn't go to row 8, it just makes row 7 a little bit wider. So we have our independent variable here, which is going to be x. I guess in this case, let's use the letter D, and our dependent variable here is going to be t. Okay, maybe I'll be even more clear. I'll type that it's equal to the treats, and this is equal to the number of days. Okay. Now, what kind of days are we talking about? Well, we can't have negative time. I know in other situations we'll use negatives, but in this example, we're just going to start with using whole numbers. So 0 days, 1 day, 2 days. And you can keep typing in the days as you go, but Google Sheets is pretty intuitive here. So if you click and drag these 3 cells, you can see this little blue box pops up in the bottom right corner. And if you don't feel like typing out all the number of days, if you click and drag, you can notice that it actually continues the pattern that we started. And you can drag that down as far as you want, right? So if you want 10 different days, go for it. If you want all the way to 15 days right over here, that's also fine. You can go as far as you really want. Maybe I'll just do 20 for this example, but it's kind of nice. You don't have to sit there and type out all those numbers. Now for the number of treats, if you really think about this, if 0 days go by, 9 times 0 is 0 plus 17. Benny's gonna have 17 total treats, basically the amount that he started with, right? So we can type that in here. Then, if 1 day goes by, 9 times 1, that's 9 plus the 17. He should get 26 treats here. And so you can type in 26. If D is 2, that's 2 days go by. 9 times 2 is 18. 18 plus 17, that's going to be 35. And we can do that math each time here. It's a little bit tedious, so there's a couple ways I can show you how we can go about doing this. Number one, notice that these are just 9 apart, right? So again, we can use this pattern and use this little blue box. As you can see, my cursor turns into this plus sign. That's when you can kind of drag this down, right? If you drag it down, you can just double check this if you're like not trusting the process here. This is 9 more. Again, this is 9 more, but you can just click and drag it all the way down, and it's pretty nice how quickly this does this for you. How it just adds 9 all the way down. Now I'm going to format this a little bit. So what you can do is you can click and highlight all of this in our data table. And a couple things we can do to kind of clean this up is we can click on this horizontal align button while it's highlighted. And you can align all the text to the left if you want. You can do it to the middle. You can do it to the right. It's kind of personal preference, but I think a lot of people do put it in the middle of the cells. Other things you can do is, again, from earlier, you can click and highlight and make everything bold, just Control B or Command B, or you can use the bold option here, and that's perfectly fine as well. If you want to make your dependent variable one color just to make it a little bit more clear and make it stand out, like go for it. And you want to make your dependent variables, you can also make that a different color. Again, this is just a personal preference thing. You're welcome to do whatever you'd like for this. You can also not do anything if you don't want to. Some people also like to put borders around boxes, or cells rather, and you can put a border, you can choose different colors of the border. You can also make the border, I guess, double lined, dashed on Google Sheets here. You can also just make it black. And not only that, but you can also, make different types of borders around specific cells. So I can also, like, for the title or the header for these, I can also do that. If I want to separate between the two, what I can also do is just kind of put one on the left side and I can kind of separate them here, okay? So you can kind of see here, this might look nicer to you, might not, but some people prefer to do this, just showing you just in case you want to. Now, a little bit more advanced method for doing this. Now, I know that one wasn't too bad, but let's actually talk about formulas here, or a quick rule that we can actually write. So what's neat about Google Sheets is we can actually program or kind of put in formulas to help us do things quicker. So we can actually hit equals in this cell. And when you start with typing in an equals, you can actually do a lot of cool things on Google Sheets. So I don't know if I said equals 9 times 8, and to get the times, I just did Shift 8. And that will just tell me it's 72, right? So it's kind of like a little calculator if you weren't aware. You do like equals and do like 18 divided by 3. 18 divided by 3, hit enter, that's just 6, right? So you can do little formulas in here. It's pretty neat. You can do like, 5 and use a little caret to the second power here, hit enter, that's gonna tell you 25, right? So lots of cool tricks you can do. But in this case, we want the number of treats, right? The number of treats is gonna be equal to 9 times the number of days plus 17. Well, we can do 9 times, and the number of days we're talking about for this particular t value for the treats is right over here. And if I click on this cell, it's going to say A9. Remember, this is column A and row 9. Okay, so it's going to say 9 times whatever's in that cell, and then we can add on 17 afterwards. If I hit enter, you're going to notice, well, first of all, we have the formula right in here, but it's also going to be in your formula bar up here. So if you're ever looking for the formula, it will be up here as well. Now, if I hit enter, it's going to say 17 treats. And that should make sense, right? Because this is 9 times A9. A9 was 0, so 9 times 0 is 0, plus 17 should still be 17. Okay? Now, this is where the magic happens. If you click on this little blue box and you drag it all the way down, these are the same values we had earlier, but the formula actually stays consistent all the way through, right? If I click on here, take a look. This is 9 times A9, which is 0, plus 17. Now it swaps it out for A10, right? The 9 and the 17 stay the same. It's just A10. A10 is this 1 over here. If you click over here on the 35, notice how it's now A11. And as I keep clicking down, notice how this is A12, A13, A14. And what's neat is it basically just swaps out each of our D values for whatever is in these rows. Okay? If you wanted to change this and just say you were wondering, what if I don't want to know for 20 days? What if I want to know for 177 days? Right? A very specific number, but you don't want to do any extra math. You can hit enter here, and it's going to tell you, using the formula, how many treats Benny would get here. What if you wanted to find for 642 days go by? Benny would get exactly 5,795. Because again, it's just taking whatever's in this A29 cell, which is this value, and it's performing the same operations on it, right? It's still multiplying by 9 and adding 17. So you could do this by hand, or you can use this Google Sheets, and you can use the formula, and it'll kind of spit out anything you want, which is nice because you don't want to really maybe have 642 rows of your column, or 794, right? It just spits it out right away for you. Okay, so hopefully you find that useful. And that's just going to give you each of our total values. I'm going to add a border on the bottom here. There we go. And now that we have a data table, I'm going to show you how to make a graph. So I'm going to start by clicking and highlighting all our data from the top of here to the bottom with the titles and everything. Different ways to do this, but I'm just showing you this way, and highlight all of this. Click on Insert, and click on Chart. And different types of charts can come up here. You can see, let's see, for scatter chart, we have different ones, different recommended ones. I think it kind of knows that's what we're doing. But if you're looking for this specific one, you can see like it does make a line right away. You know, we can see different types of things here. It's not really a curve, so it's not going to do much. Here's a bar graph area under the curve, under the line. But we can just click on scatter for now, just so you can see where like the ordered pairs are plotted. Okay, so there you go with where the graph is going to generally look like. And now it's just going to customize it, right? So your goal is to get this scatter plot with these points, and now I'm going to show you how to kind of format this to make it look a little nicer. So over here, once we're in the setup area, we have this all set up. We can now click on customize, right? So customize, we can click on this, chart style. If you want to play around with like, the background, if you like gray or something, or like another color like yellow, it's up to you. You can also just leave it alone. That's perfectly fine. I don't know what I just did to the formatting. There we go. So that's the default. It's up to you if you want to play around with that. But the title, that's really important. So you should make up a nice title for your graph. I'm going to call mine Benny. Benny's a good boy. All right. And then I'm going to bold that, and I'm going to put that in the center. You can play with fonts if you want, and that's perfectly fine. And then you can also, as well as I want you to label, or you can label the x-axis and y-axis. So the horizontal, that's left and right. We're going to call this one time, and this is the number of days. Okay, put that right over here. And we can bold that as well. It's already in the center, so we can just leave that alone. And for the vertical axis, we can make this a little bit more clear as well and say that the vertical axis is going to be the total number of treats, or something along those lines. Okay, you can also bold that. I think it's already in the center, so that's going to be good. If you want to change any colors or other defaults, that's perfectly fine, but this is very specific, right? And people can now say, okay, these are the number of days going along the x-axis, and these are the total number of treats Benny gets given those number of days. Okay, so that's basically putting in the titles, and typically you want to label your axes. Okay. If you click on series, an important thing you can do is you can change the color of your dots if you want to change those for any particular reason. You can also change how big you have your dots if you don't like them as big as they are. Feel free to do that as well. You can also play around with this and do diamonds and X's. I just typically just stick with the dots. And what you can also do is you can play with the axes. So if you want the y-axis on the right side or left side, you can also play around with that. And we're going to add a trend line here, right? So typically when you have linear equations, you can just draw that line all the way straight through. It's basically, for linear equations, it's going to go through each of our points. Okay, that should make sense. You can play around with the line. You can make it darker, thinner. Opacity is just like how clear or not clear it is. I think it was default 40%, but that's whatever you choose is not really a big deal here. You can also choose how thick you want it. And you can label it as you want as well. Okay, so that is just a little bit of what the series. What you really want from the series is just to add the trend line in there. Legend, I don't think we really need any legends here. And grid lines and ticks, this one's pretty useful to some people. So for the vertical axis, you can see how it goes by every 50 here, right? Now, if you want to specify, you can make the major steps like, I don't know, if you want every 20 treats, you can do that, and it's going to put in those lines to help you be a little bit more accurate. It'd be a little silly to kind of say like every one treat. That's not maybe the most useful because there's so many treats. Going by tens here, but you can see like doing this by hand would be very tedious, but you can actually have it do the work for you here. I don't know, 20 seems okay. It doesn't seem too crowded on my graph, so I'm going to go with 20 here. And you can do like minor ones as well. So like in between those, you can do like thinner ones, but I don't think it's completely necessary that we do that either. Then we can click over to the horizontal axis. Whoops. Go to the vertical axis. How do I get rid of this? I can say none. There we go. And we go over to the horizontal axis, and we can also do something similar. So if we want to go by ones, it'll do every single day. And maybe for this looks pretty clean. This looks pretty good. It's only 20 days on our chart, so I'm going to include all of them. But you're also welcome to go by twos if you want to go every 2 days or every 3 days. That's perfectly fine. Hopefully you can see that they're all accurate, just different ways of representing the same thing. Now I'm just going to kind of just X out of this. this is a linear graph for this data table here. I don't know what happened to my independent variable. I'm just gonna put that back in. Dependent variable. All right, cool. There we go. Now, if you want to get a picture or a screenshot of this at all, like what you can do is you can click and just, I don't know, copy and paste. For this table here, you can notice you couldn't really see the left side of the border. So, you know, if that bothers you, you can always like copy and paste it so you can see the border all the way around. And you can take a screenshot of this table, and you take a screenshot of it, then you can use it for whatever projects you're doing. For any assignments you're doing, you can get that data table. It's a pretty nice way of doing that. And you know, making it clean and organized. Oops, I'll just get rid of that. And for your graph, just say you need your graph for a project or assignment or something like that, you can just click on these 3 dots in the top right corner, and you can, you know, download it as a PDF or a PNG. So this is like the PDF, or this is like a picture type. You guys probably don't have to worry about the scalable vector graphics, but you can just download as a PDF, and then it'll go to the bottom of your screen. And you can just click and drag wherever you need it to. You can drag it into Google Slides, drag it into a Google Docs, so on and so forth. So I hope you found this video helpful in being able to take a linear situation, making a data table using formulas a little bit, and making a detailed graph that represents your linear situation. And as always, keep up the good work, and I'll see you in the next one.